All right, so welcome back to part 2 of this series where I'm trying to build out a decentralized application using Solidity and a couple of other tools along the way. So in this part 2, we're going to build out a front-end application that could potentially connect to the smart contract that we created and start calling that method that we added. So if you remember in the contract, we have a method called buy ticket. So we want to be able to load up a UI and basically show all the tickets that are available for purchase, and then also present a button so someone can click on the buy ticket button. So first of all, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a new directory called client. So I'm gonna say make dir client. And that is where I'm gonna be hosting all of these vanilla JavaScript files and the index HTML. We are gonna use Parcel in this project. So let's just go ahead and do an npm init to create a package JSON inside that client folder. And now inside the client folder, we should have a package JSON. I'm gonna go ahead and say npm install save dev. I'm gonna say Parcel. And then we also want to import or install a module called Web3. So Web3 is a library that you can use to basically connect to these smart contracts and execute code on them, or you can use them to kind of transfer funds and run transactions. But while that's getting set up, let's just go ahead and make an index.html file. And I'm going to scaffold that out like this. And we are going to say Web3 tickets. And then inside the client, we're going to say index.js. This will be where all the code is kind of hosted for application. And then I also want to do a style.css because we do need to have some custom styles. We're also going to use Bootstrap as well, so keep that in mind. So while that's still getting downloaded down here at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and import that script. So I'm going to say script type is equal to module, and then I'm going to say source of index. And then in the head, I'm going to say style. Let's see, I forget how you do this. Let me just let GitHub Copilot kind of do this. So I'm going to import a style sheet from style.css. All right, so that finished installing Parcel, and we're going to use that to kind of spin up this application. The next thing we want to use is Web3. I kind of mentioned that before. And then we also want to do Bootstrap. I also have an image of a ticket. So I'm going to say images, and I'm going to go ahead and pull in a ticket image here. So go ahead and pull in that ticket PNG to that images folder if this would actually load. All right, so we'll use that later to kind of display a ticket picture for the user. All right, so I think all of our dependencies are done installing. Hopefully I didn't forget any. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the package JSON and I'm going to change this script to a start script. So if you're familiar with what the package JSON is, you can define like custom commands that you can run. And I'm just going to run Parcel over that index.html file. If you don't know what Parcel is, it's basically a tool that'll bundle up your application and host it locally for you, or you can bundle it up and get it to be an actual distribution. But I'm going to say npm run start, and that should run Parcel over that index file, which will basically bring in all of our dependencies, bundle it up, and then we can see it running on localhost 1234. So let's just go ahead and refresh the page here. We should see that this is loading fine. Let's open up our terminal down at the bottom. And so far it looks pretty good. So there are a few things I want to do. The first thing I want to do is inside the index file, I want to go ahead and build out a header, right? We want to be able to display a header, a Bootstrap header, and show you what account ID, what account public address you have set up. So we're going to set up a header here. So I'm going to go ahead and say nav ID is header. And this is just some Bootstrap stuff, so I could just technically copy this straight from the Bootstrap website. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over the Bootstrap here. I'm going to go over to, I believe it's called navbar. And I think there's one in particular I'm kind of looking for. There's like a minimal one that has like a search button. Let's just scroll down, see if we can find it. You know what, this one should be good enough. Let's just go ahead and grab this one. And I'm going to paste that right in here. And I'm going to go ahead and just delete some stuff. Like we don't need any of these nav items. And we also don't need this form. I'm going to change this to a div. And inside the div, I'm going to just remove some stuff. So let's actually make sure this actually renders. So let's go over to our UI and this should show a nav bar. Right now it's not styled correctly because we haven't actually imported Bootstrap at all. So let's go back to our index file. And I'm going to go ahead and start importing some stuff. So I'm going to say import Web3 from Web3. Remember, this is that library we talked about that's going to be needed to kind of connect to these smart contracts. And then I'm also going to say import bootstrap /dist css bootstrap.css. And if this stuff both imports correctly, we should see the header be styled a little bit cleaner. So let's wait for this to finish running and go over to the UI, and we should see a nice looking header. There we go. We got a header, it says navbar, and the other thing is missing now. So we're going to use this navbar again to show the public address that we have. And a lot of this stuff we can kind of get rid of. Like we don't need this button here. We don't need container fluid. We could say like, this is called tickets. ID. Let's get rid of some of this stuff. In fact, I don't think we need that either. Let me just try putting in like a basic address here and see what happens. Cool. So you can see in the top right, this is where we're going to display your public address, and we haven't actually coded that in code yet, but I'm going to go ahead and put a placeholder here called account, and we are going to delete this placeholder text. So this index.js is kind of the entry point to our web application. This is the file that's going to run first when the web page loads. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to kind of import the contracts JSON. So what I may or may not have showed you is there's a build folder when you deploy your contracts using Truffle, and there's a JSON file here. So we want to import this JSON file so that we know what address we want to kind of connect to from our UI, and also the IBI or the ABI. The ABI is something that tells you like what methods exist on the contract that you can call. So let's just go ahead and import those. I'm going to say const contract address is equal to configuration. Let's go ahead and import that configuration. So let's say import configuration from, go up a level to build/contracts tickets.json. So that should bring in that configuration, and then we can kind of pull out some constants using that. So I'm going to say const contract address is equal to configuration networks 5777.address, and then also we can say contract ABI is that. So we're going to need these two things to kind of configure this Web3 client that we have imported. Let's just go ahead and say const web3 is equal to new web3. And we're going to say web3.givenProvider, or we can fall back on a URL. So I'll just say 127.0.0.1.7.5.4.5. So what this is going to do is set up a Web3 connection to localhost more than likely, or use the given provider if there's one. And we can basically start using this to kind of connect to the contract. So I'm going to say const contract is equal to new web3 eth.contract, and we can actually pass it the ABI and address here. So now we actually have a contract. You can actually start calling methods on your contract if you wanted to right here. It's going to be asynchronous, so you need to do promise chaining or async await. But let's not do that just yet. Let's just keep on scaffolding out some of this code. The next thing we want to do is get a placeholder for the account. So we want to keep track of the account address that we're going to be using later on when we try to buy one of these tickets. But what we can do is when this thing actually loads up, I'm going to make a main function, and we are going to basically call it down here just so that we can kind of do some asynchronous code here. And with the Web3 framework, what you can do is you can actually request the accounts from the MetaMask if you want. So if I say const accounts is equal to await web3.getAccounts, Copilot's kind of showing me how to do some of this stuff. But what we want to do is get the accounts. Actually, we don't want to do get accounts. We want to do request accounts. So request accounts will actually like move the user screen to another page and ask them if they want to connect to this UI. We'll see in a second how it kind of works. And let's just go ahead and get the account, the very first index of the account. We're going to use this. This is just whatever index or whatever account you have selected in MetaMask. And I think that's about it. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get the DOM element that we called account. So I'm going to say const account L is equal to document.getElement by ID account. And what we could do is we can grab that element and just change the inner text to account. So hopefully you're familiar with vanilla JavaScript. All we're doing is getting the account from MetaMask. We get the actual address here, and we're setting that in the header here. So let's go back. And I think I've already connected to this application using this account, so it didn't prompt us. But let me just show you what happens. If I go and get a new account from Ganache, I'll grab this one. And I'm going to go ahead and add this up here to my MetaMask wallet. I kind of showed you in the first part of this tutorial how you can do this, but let's just go ahead and import one real quick. Click on this, say import account, type in the private key. And now we have a new account here with ending with 72E5. you can see it says not connected. So you do need to connect this to the UI. And sometimes when you switch accounts, what you also need to do is you need to like switch your network sometimes. But what I'm going to show you is if you just refresh the page, that code that we added, that request accounts call, should make sure I use, let's see, 7D. All right, so one thing you'll notice is that when I refresh the page, it's still displaying the old account here. And that is because we haven't connected this new account to the UI. So I'm going to go over here where it says not connected and click that. And I'm going to go ahead and say connect account 3. So that's the account we just added. And now we should have that account show up when we refresh the page. You can see that the account changed to 72E5, which I believe is the one we just added in, if my memory serves correctly. 72E5, yep. So we have the new account selected and the address is showing up correctly. So the next step is we want to kind of display all the tickets, right? We learned how to grab the current account that you have selected in MetaMask up here, and we are displaying it in the header. But the next step is we actually want to like display these tickets inside the UI. So I'm going to go back over to the index HTML here, and I'm going to make a new container underneath the nav. So I'm going to say like container, that's going to have a row, it's going to have a column. And inside of all that, what we could basically do is just put another div. I'm going to call it tickets. And that's about it. So we have a div that we can actually start pushing stuff into called tickets. And going back to the JavaScript code, I am going to go ahead and just make sure I keep track of that. So I'm going to say tickets L is equal to document.getElement by ID of tickets. And now we have the ability to kind of append things to this. So we're going to make a new method. Now that we have that like HTML scaffolding put in place, we're going to make a new method called refresh tickets, right? So this is going to be the most complicated method of this tutorial. I'm going to say refresh tickets, and that's going to be an asynchronous function. And what this is going to do is going to clear out the currently existing DOM element, and then we're going to basically loop over and append new things to it. So in JavaScript, what we can do is we can do a for loop, and we want to loop basically, I don't know, say like 10 times, because that's how many tickets that we have on the smart contract. Actually, I'm going to change this to, what is it, total tickets. And that could be a constant that we declare like up here as 10. So now we're going to loop over 10 tickets. And for each one, what you can actually do is you can fetch the state of the ticket using the index. So I'm going to say const ticket is equal to await contract. Did I call it contact or contract? Let me change this to contract. So to say contract.methods, this is how you can have access your methods. And remember, we have a method, or we have a public member on the contract. If I look back at the contract, I think it was here, and I can click tickets. Remember, we have a public member called tickets. So we can actually access that. It's kind of strange, but we can say tickets of I.call, and that's going to actually give us the state of index 0 through 10, or 0 through 9, and put it in here. So let's just go ahead and console log this to make sure that we're on the kind of the right path. Let's say console log ticket. All right, we're just going to go ahead and console log this ticket here, but what we're also going to do is when the application first loads, let's await on this method so we can actually like fetch these tickets and see those console logs happen. So down here, we see a bunch of things print out. They have a price, they have an owner, and those are the things we're going to be using to kind of display dynamic content in the UI. So we're on the right path. Now what we need to do is we're going to dynamically create some DOM elements and put them on the page based on what's returned here. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say ticket of ID is equal to I, just so we can keep track of what index this ticket belongs to. And for right now, let's just go ahead and not print out the ticket if we own it. So I'm going to say if ticket owner is equal to, let's see what the empty address is. So there's a hard-coded string that you can kind of compare to, like so. That's going to be your empty address, meaning that it doesn't belong to anybody. I'm going to go ahead and make that a constant up here. I'm going to say empty address is equal to that. And I'm going to use that down here. So loop over all the tickets, and the ones that are empty, we can actually display. So if you know anything about vanilla JavaScript, this is how you can kind of create DOM elements. In fact, I'm going to bring in a helper function up here because it can get a little painful unless you're using like string interpolation. So I'm going to say const create element from string, and I hope that GitHub Copilot will just generate something for me. Perfect. That's lazy coding at its finest. So let's just go ahead and use this method. So I'm going to say const ticket element is equal to this. And I'm going to pass it a interpolated string where we are going to basically make a div. But we're going to go to Bootstrap, and we're going to find the card element. See if we can find card. And just let's grab this first card, and we're going to use this as an example. Go ahead and paste that in. And instead of card title, we're going to say like actually, so down here we have like a link. We can change this to a button, and we can have that not do anything for right now. And we're going to call it buy. And then inside the card text, we could say ticket price. And I think that should be all that we kind of need to do. We can also like display an image up here. Let's actually keep on working. We'll come back and fix the image. So what we're going to do is the ticket element is actually a DOM element that we can push to the ticket. So remember, we have the tickets element, and we can say append child and pass it the ticket L here. So yeah, if everything works fine, we should see a bunch of cards kind of print out. Okay. So we got cards. It's missing an image, but it looks pretty good. What I'm going to do now is I want to actually display that ticket image. So remember, I had an image I put in this images folder. What we're going to do is we are going to import that. So if I'm using Parcel, I can simply say import ticket image, and then I can say from /images/ticket PNG. And then down here where we're doing the string interpolation, I could simply just do this. I think Parcel will convert this to like a blob array or something, and I think the images should start showing up if we're lucky. Here we go. So we got some tickets. What I would like to do is style this tickets container so that it actually has like a grid style. So let's go to the style sheet. We haven't actually done any styling yet. Let's go ahead and style the tickets. I think it's called tickets with a hashtag. And we're going to say display of grid. And then I'm going to say grid template columns is repeat of, I think it's, let's do 1FR. That should make 4 columns and push all those tickets into different columns. Cool. So next step is I would probably want to add some padding underneath these tickets. So let's go to the index.js file, and inside of here, next to card, I'm going to add another class called ticket, just so that we can style it down here. So I can say ticket, and then margin bottom is 20 pixels. And then also the header, we can say margin bottom of 20 pixels. I don't know if we actually gave it a class of header or an ID of header. Let's look up here. I don't think we did. So let's just give it an ID of header. All right, so now we should have some margin between the header and the tickets, and then the tickets have margins between them. All right, so we have the tickets displayed. The next step is we want to convert this to Ethereum. Right now, I think it's in we. So we can just divide it by 1e to the 18th to kind of convert it to Ethereum. And that looks good. So you can buy a ticket for .1 Ethereum, or Ether, I mean. I keep saying Ethereum. Now, the last step to this tutorial is basically we want to have a buy ticket button, right? So we have the button here, but there's no ability to click on it just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, all right, so remember we have a button here, but we actually want to add like a click listener for when you actually click this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say constant button is equal to ticket L. That looks good. I'll just get the ticket L here, query selector, get the button, and I'm going to say button.onClick is equal to buy ticket dot bind, and I'm going to say ticket. All right, so we don't have a function called buy ticket. So up here, I'm going to go ahead and make one. I'm going to say const buy ticket is equal to an asynchronous function, which is basically just going to call the contract again. So I'm going to say await contract dot methods dot buy ticket. And remember, this contract takes an ID, so I need to say ticket ID. And then whenever you're doing a call to a method that accepts like money, like a payable method, as we have defined in our smart contract, remember this is a payable. We go to this, I think we call this payable. You actually need to do a .send, right? So you need to provide who it's coming from. So I'm going to say from account, and then you also need to provide the value that you're sending in. So I'm going to say ticket.price. And then once you've bought the ticket, I'm just going to go ahead and await refresh tickets. So that should hopefully clear out the tickets and show you the ones that haven't been bought yet. So let's just go ahead and run this and see what happens. We might have a bug or not. Let me also remove the console log. I think there's a console log here that's kind of making the console a little messy. All right, let's try this out. So now when I click buy on index 1, it should switch my screen over to MetaMask and ask for like a confirmation. So right now it's saying, do I want to buy a ticket for .1 Ethereum? I'm going to say confirm, and that should redirect me back to the page. The tickets should refresh, and notice that now it only displays 8 tickets. I think it's not displaying the full 10 because I actually messed around with the tickets in MetaMask, so I have to kind of reset the contract state if I wanted to get this back. But let me just show you again. We have 8 tickets. If I buy another one, go ahead and confirm that gas price, and that ticket should now go away in this display, and that ticket now belongs to me. So if I look at my address up here, I want to show you one more time what's going on. Let's go over to Ganache. I want to show you, if I go to the contract now, I don't know why I can't find that. Let me just restart this real quick. It should have found my contract. I didn't really change anything. But if I go to this and go to index 1 and look at who owns this, notice that it starts with 5B8, which is not this one. Let's see. Let me refresh the page and see what's going on. Okay, I think I clicked on the wrong one. The one I actually bought was this one. So I bought index 2, which is 52EB. So this is the actual new owner of that ticket. And if I look over here, that's actually who I'm logged in as, 52EB. And I also bought another one. So one of these other tickets should belong to me. Probably 3. Here it is. So I own these 2 tickets. And notice that they no longer get displayed in the UI. So you can take the information that you kind of learned in this video. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. But you can expand upon this and maybe add some toggles to show like what tickets have been bought already and what tickets haven't been. Because really it's just a filter here in this loop. Also, I would definitely recommend, if you start getting too complex with this web UI, use like React or Svelte. Just import this Web3 library and do the same logic. I think vanilla JavaScript is great when you're just playing around with stuff, but as your applications get larger, it becomes really unmanageable. But yeah, I think that really wraps up this decentralized application I wanted to build for you all. This is really just a 2-part tutorial in the series. I could probably expand on it more if I wanted to, but I'm going to end it here and maybe move on to more Web3 content potentially in the future. If you have any questions or comments or concerns about what I've done in this video, be sure to leave a comment below. Also, you can join my Discord if you want to ask me questions directly related to this tutorial or to Web3 or Ethereum. Again, I've just recently started learning Web3, so this is all really new to me, so I might have told you something that's incorrect. Feel free to correct me. Like always, if you're new to this channel, be sure to click that subscribe button and that bell icon to get more notifications of when I publish content like this in the future. And also give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching this content, because it helps my channel grow and also helps me get more views on this video. Cool. Have a good day, and thank you so much for watching. By the way, the code will be hosted at a GitHub link in the description below, so be sure to check that out if you want to actually see the code. Cool. Have a good day.